So Nottingham Forest nil, Arsenal nil. Arsenal get a draw at the City ground tonight. Once again, really spineless in the attack, toothless yet again. We got Dom with us, first fan cam on the channel. Dom, bro, another draw this season. What's your whole overall thoughts on that game, mate?
Oh, I missed it, mate. I fell asleep. Oh, stealing Rory's joke there. Sorry, I'll have to credit him with that one. Look, I was speaking to people before the game, and I think this little period between now and the international break is going to be attritional football. You got, none of your front three available or your first choice front three. You're going to have to find different solutions, and the options are limited. Arsenal have got to look at themselves for January for that. Should have brought someone in, but I don't think one player significantly changes your options. And Arsenal are going to have to find a variety of ways to try and score at the moment. None of them really working. Game went pretty much as I expected, apart from the fact Forest offered less of a threat than I thought they would. I thought they'd be. I knew they'd sort of sit in a low sort of medium block and try and hit us on the counter, and that's pretty much what they tried to do. Um, and that Arsenal would control the game and that Forest would make it difficult. But I actually thought Forest would offer a little bit more of a threat, and I thought that's where Arsenal might get their goal, would be either from a set piece. A piece of magic from, say, an Odegaard or Ranieri, or more likely, where Forest had committed a few more men forward, thinking that Arsenal could be more vulnerable and Arsenal, could be hit, not just on the counter, but throwing a few more men forward and sort of get at Arsenal a little bit. Arsenal remain very good defensively. I know the Jared Bowen goal the weekend was a horror show, but that happens sometimes. But Forest didn't really offer anything. And with the lack of options Arsenal have, it was always going to be very, very difficult to break that down. And we didn't do it, and it was dull to watch. There's no question it was always going to be dull to watch. And we created one shot on target in the entire game. One of two shots in the entire match on target. And one that hits the post. Which I know is not a shot on target, but I kind of count it as a I kind of count it because it's almost you can get a shot on target from 30 yards where the keeper goes, oh thanks, catch it all day long.
Yeah,
And you can have a flyer off the post or the crossbar, and it's like, well, it's not on target, is it? It's like, which one was the better chance? But you know, it's not a surprise, but it's also not good enough, right? I mean, Forest might be third, but do I really think they're the best side in England? Third best side in England? No, I don't. They're just running hot all season. And fair play to them, but they're not the third best side in England. They're about the 10th probably. And you've got to be better than that. And that's kind of my overall reflection. I don't know what you thought, but
yeah, no, I think that's very well said, man. I do agree with a lot of points you said there. I think you're right. I mean, I was surprised with how Forest really played. I think they actually had one of the best in terms of like transitions, counter attacks. I think they got most of their goals this season from on the counter attack, really. So they got a really good record in that sense. But I don't think they really troubled us too much. I think Gabriel and Saliba, as you rightly said, the defense really stood out today. Kept Chris Wood quiet. I think other than that last rare save that he had, like half chance. Other than that, Forest didn't really offer anything. But then it was for us as well, as you said, the only way we was really going to score maybe was from a set piece. But even the set pieces, I thought Don were just they weren't there, were they?
no, I think on the set pieces we're missing. Oh, we're missing Saka quite badly on the set pieces, not necessarily because of the ones he takes, but because the variety him and Rice offer in combination, I think really causes oppositions a big problem. At the moment, you've got Rice and others taking them, but I think we just miss that sort of threat and that difference that the
Mm.
options take. And I know that sounds daft. And look, set pieces are important, but Arsenal need to be better than just set pieces. I
Yeah.
hate this narrative with set piece FC. I mean, I don't see Manchester United complaining tonight having scored all three from set pieces, right?
Mm.
They're a perfectly legitimate way to score. And sometimes they can unlock a team. And I never thought we were a set piece FC and still don't. But I do think that is a big factor in our set pieces not quite being as good as they were earlier in the season. But I always thought we were running hot in that set piece FC period. Now we're running a little bit colder than we should have. These things tend to even themselves out, in my view. Um, you know, but you're sort of missing a focal point. I think, Marino is the closest thing to Havertz in terms of profile, but he's not a centre forward.
Uh,
You can talk about Havertz not being a centre forward, but he's an attacking player.
yeah.
He's a different sort of number nine. I always used to say Bobby Firmino at Liverpool wasn't a
Mm,
striker, but that didn't mean he couldn't be an effective forward. And I think the same is true of Havertz. I think Havertz's link-up play arguably a little bit better, but Firmino's finishing was better, right? And that's where sort of the difference between the two, but very similar. Otherwise, Marino obviously not that, and you kind of saw it more against West Ham when he was so deep. Sometimes you're like, no, you need to be further forward. You're the centre forward now. You're not the,
yeah, yeah.
you know, and we're missing that. But I think there's an argument for having to try and change. Either we use the next week to really, really work on this 4-3-3 that we generally play. I know Arteta rolled against a question from, I think it was Tom Canton, in the build-up to the match. We don't play 4-3-3. We talk different formations. But we play 4-3-3 roughly.
Yeah.
That might change in and out of possession a little bit, but that's a rough shape, right? We either really go with that or we look to change the system slightly. But in some ways, we did that tonight, right? Calafiori, and this is where I thought Forest might hit us on the break more and sort of exploit the space
Mm,
Calafiori left, because Calafiori almost played as a second striker at
yeah,
times, right?
yeah. Mm,
I was talking to Lee from Gooner Gathering before the game, and I was saying that we need to get more bodies forward, and I wondered whether Calafiori might move us further forward from the pitch. I wasn't expecting him to be the second striker.
yeah.
Um, he was that far forward, but of course that leaves the space, and that's where you have to give Gabriel a lot of credit because he covers that space so well.
He
We
got
talk
a bit
about
caught out, kind of flow though, especially in the 2 minutes, didn't he, when he got the yellow cards? I think that sort of made him put effect in terms of defensively to be more careful as well, obviously, when you get the yellow.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And Calafiori, you look at Calafiori and you go, it was a sensible decision to hook him at half time because although he was playing
Yeah.
well, we can't have a sixth red card of a season, and that's where Forest were obviously going to attack because it's the best way to attack Arsenal. We talk about the fact that left backs have constantly struggled, and Zinchenko often gets a lot of criticism for his defensive work. But I think that is largely in part because of the way we play. That's where the space is, and that leaves
Mm,
him out of position and struggling to get back in position because we've asked him to be that bit further forward. So you lose the ball, you've got to try and recover that space, and you're always sort of slightly behind, and that leads to the increase in mistakes. And that's not to defend Zinchenko personally, but it's the way every system has weaknesses, and that's the Arsenal defensive weakness is in that space because it's where the space is. And Calafiori, I think, had the same tonight. Miles Lewis-Skelly, part of the reason why he got sent off was because that's where the space is when we push that bit further forward. It meant that he was the last man. He's tried to make the tackle and he's missed it, and he's rightly sent off. And I'm talking the West Ham one, not the Wolves one.
yeah. Is there a level of sort of seeing the recent games? Because I look back to Leicester game as well, and obviously Mika Marino got us out, but I think he saved us in that one, the two goals. But even in that one was very underwhelming.
Yeah,
10 minutes ago, 0-0. Leicester, figured it out so well organised side. Obviously, the West Ham defeat. The lack of goals, the lack of getting any sort of clear cut, creating the chances in the final third. Is this a concern going forward to the upcoming games for you, Dom, in terms of like the rest of the season? Because we've still got quite a few games to go, don't we, as well?
I think there's two parts to that question, isn't there? So I think it's a concern for the next couple of games. Certainly, it's not a surprise. I spoke about it was always going to be attritional because we lack that sort of options to change it. And I think Mikel Arteta got it right against Leicester, but there's a certain element of luck to that. And there's going to
Mm,
be, I just go over as throw enough mud at the wall and hope something sticks. It's kind of what we've got to do because there is a lack of options there, and you're kind of hoping something happens from nothing, or that you
yeah.
get a bit lucky. Calafiori hits the post tonight. It's one of those ones where you want to hope to get a bit lucky to get in, and that's where, you know, I think this is genuinely a historic season from injuries, and I think that is a massive factor in it. And I don't think one extra player in January would have overly changed those options. But equally, you've got to look at January and go, had we done something in January? And I think we could have done something in January, despite the limitations around finance, etc. I think there was someone you could have got in January you feed that narrative, right, that you've not done enough and you've not looked at done enough and
Mm.
you etc etc, and actually one extra option is better than no extra options. I don't think massively changes it, but you have to go, that's a huge mistake from Arsenal, and they have to own that mistake, no question about it. um but back to your original question, I think we're just going to have to muddle through the next couple of weeks because there's nothing else, right? No
Yeah.
one is coming back. Then you've just got to hope you're in the international window that Martinelli, who apparently is the closest of the him and Saka to being available, and Saka are available, but they're not
Yeah.
going to be able to run the full 90 minutes. That might just change it a little bit because at least you've got options off the bench, even if they can't start, that can come and change it. Um, but I think that's just going to be what it's going to be for the next couple of weeks. And while that's frustrating, it's hard for me to get, in terms of the actual games, really stuck into the players or the manager for not being able to find that way through, because I look at Manchester City this season, how much they've struggled when they haven't got their best player. You know, Pep Guardiola, one of the best, if not the best manager in the world, really struggling. I think it's the same here.
Mm.
But that's where you have to look at the reason behind that, which is that window. I think the one thing I would say that it concerns me, and I think this is a lesson we need to learn in terms of the bigger picture of the season. And the main thing I would criticise Arteta for is we're too conservative when things aren't going well. We're too
Yeah.
defensive. We talk about the horseshoe attack. It's boring, it's dull, and it's easy to defend. It's not. Tonight I thought it was better. I thought if we'd done that with better attacking players, that wins the game tonight, no question.
Yeah.
But that at least was a positive from tonight, that we were getting more players into the box and around them. The problem was there weren't any true attackers on there to make that
No.
work. But at least that was something, because too many times this season we've been too conservative, too defensive on that. And I look at that sort of period in December, and I look at that period with the red cards against Brighton, Bournemouth. We tried to hold what we've got, and I got that. It's a strength of a team,
Mm.
but actually you have to win those games or more of them, and that's where you have to be slightly more offensive, and that's the main criticism I have, and that would be my concern, that if we don't learn that lesson, that's a big problem. But
Yeah.
like I say, the next few games we're just going to have to deal with it because there's nothing else,
Yeah. Nah,
which is
Dom, very well.
frustrating.
Yeah, Dom, very well said as always, man. Thank you for obviously coming on today. And guys, you can find Dom's channel, link in the description. Make sure guys go over there. Some amazing content. Drop Dom a sub. Let's get into 100 subscribers, people, as well. Be greatly appreciated. And yeah, we'll catch you guys, of course. Next up is PSV. Very tough game next Tuesday in Champions League. So we'll catch you guys there. Thanks for who watched, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers, Josh.
Cheers, mate.